Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Turman, and on behalf of the Grammy Museum, I'm glad to welcome Daniel Armbruster from the band Joywave as part of our Spotlight Saturdays with Hollywood. Greetings.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I have to say this is huge for me because we have released 3 Grammy eligible records now. So to be here talking with you means a lot. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, let me tell everyone a little bit about you and the band in case they don't know, and then you can hop in and give us the real truth. So Joywave are from Rochester, New York, and also the band, Joseph Morinelli, Benjamin Bailey, and Paul Brenner. As you say, you have 3 records out. I think it was maybe 2014 when you became super popular for collaborating with Big Data on the track Dangerous, which went to #1, which is huge kudos to you. So your last record, let's start there. It was last year, 2020, Possession. Bad timing, certainly, unfortunate timing, not your fault. But what I thought was interesting is you'd actually started releasing songs from it maybe in 2018, I think, with Blast Off was the first, yeah?
Yeah, it was a really long rollout cycle, but yeah, the record came out Friday, March 13th, 2020, and we put the date on the calendar several months prior and said, what's the worst that could happen? A lot.
Exactly. So I think along with the rest of the world, we all saw weird things starting to happen before that date. Were you on the road at the time, or where were you that week?
Yes, we were in, well, we were in Europe throughout February, and then we flew back home March 1st or March 2nd. And I think it hit me end of February because we were, you know, it was spreading prolifically in Europe at that point. But every morning I would wake up, go downstairs, you know, we're in Paris or wherever, and whatever the local language was, I did not speak it, but I would see the newspaper and it said like un coronavirus, and I would go up to the counter. I'd be like, is it here? Is it here? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, ah. So we were ahead of it the whole way, and then I started to get worried towards the end of the month. I'm like, you know, are they going to close the border? Are we going to be able to get home? And this is around the time when the federal response team at the time was saying, well, don't worry, we're checking people's temperatures at the border and stuff. And we flew into Newark back on March 2nd, and the border guard says to me, have you been to Wuhan? And I said, no. And I'm, you know, waiting for more questions. And
Yes.
he's like, go ahead, go on in. And I'm like, nothing? And he's like, no, you know, you haven't been to Wuhan. And I'm like, all of Europe is gone. I just came from there. It's not there anymore. You know, you might want to check for other things or follow. No, I'm good. So
Wow.
came home. My girlfriend picked me up from the airport. I said, we are in huge trouble. We're going straight to Wegmans, the grocery store, and we got a bunch of stuff and haven't left the house a whole lot since.
So you're the one who took all the toilet paper that first week.
I was well stocked. I did not buy toilet paper because I said, why would there be a problem with toilet paper? Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, whew. All right. Well, I can see that you are healthy, and hopefully you have been healthy, and the rest of the band as well. Like you say, there was a long rollout, which I thought was really interesting. You had Like a Kennedy, Obsession, which the video for that got some great awards, I believe, and Video of the Year nominations.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's stop there and tell me a little about that.
Oh, I don't know who gave me the award, but someone gave me an award for Video of the Year. So
is it in the room there with you?
No physical thing ever showed up. Real bummed about that.
You also had Half Your Age, and speaking of videos, also Like a Kennedy. That is a very I'm not sure the adjective. What adjective would daring? Maybe daring. You might think that someone would be shocked to see that video, and tell me your thoughts on that.
It's definitely a polarizing video. I mean, the song is kind of this, like, I've always called it an anti-chaos song, like just wanting to, the last line of the song says everything, kind of. It's just listing all these things. It's funny because I'm sure a lot of people felt like this, but these words that I had written in 2018 and 2019, like really, really rang true in 2020. But just all the polarization that we've seen, and I felt like I was drowning in it going back to 2018. Just anytime the news is on, whatever's right, it was like at the time it was like North Korea has nuclear weapons and they can reach the West Coast, right? And how long until they can reach the East Coast? And it was always something of we're doomed. And the last line of the song is that I just want to be fat and old and happy. So yeah, the video, for people who haven't seen it, is literally a recreation of the Kennedy assassination, and it's on loop. And gun violence has just been this theme in our society, and watching that on all the mass shootings on loop, it's just one after the other, and nothing changes. So you're seeing the scene play out over and over and over and over again, and the other people in the vehicle are not ever surprised by it. No one moves to stop it. No one makes any adjustments to prevent it from happening the next time. Yeah, I mean, it was a frustrating time to be an American and have the news on in the background, and it hasn't gotten any better. How about that?
How about that? Yeah, thank you for that great explanation. I also thought it was very interesting because you're obviously too young to have remembered the Kennedy assassination. Maybe your parents told you about it or whatever. So I thought that was interesting too, that you chose that one specifically as a.
To that point, it was really interesting to see the reaction from the younger generation. Did not find it offensive or controversial or taboo or anything, because to them it's history. To me, it's history also,
Right.
And that's a tragic memory, but it belongs to all of us, right? It belongs to all Americans. So to invoke it, to make this point about the gun violence and trying to do something to prevent the cycle, I think was really important. And then the fact that people who remember that were really off put by it, I think was good, because I think that they're the generation who has been kicking the can down the road on this forever, and the younger generation are the ones who have school shooter drills, right? Like they've grown up with it. I mean, I think the right people were outraged by it and forced to think.
Great. Yeah, very well put. Yeah, and that previous generation had the nuclear drills under the duck and cover.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right, we're about to get current, but I'm so interested in a lot of possession. That sounded weird, but I love possession. What I found fascinating, and I'm embarrassed not to know about, was the golden record, the Voyager golden record. And of course, we just recently had the rover landing on Mars. And so, yeah, tell me what influenced the gold. Well, tell people what it is if they're as ignorant as I am, and how it influenced the record.
So the golden record was made by NASA. Carl Sagan curated it in the 70s, and it's attached to the front of I think there's technically two, but they're on the front of the Voyager space probes, which is the furthest thing that mankind has ever sent out into the universe. And on it, there's greetings in like every language. There's music, sounds. It basically tells the history of humanity in sound. So there's like horses, and then they develop, there's like a steamboat, then there's a rocket launch, and it's meant to show any intelligent life out there who may find it what we were like, and maybe infinitely in the future. But I was fascinated with the idea of that being the furthest that humanity has ever put anything into space. And to gain that vantage point, I have always loved the story of one of the Apollo missions. I think it was Apollo 8 in 1968 on Christmas Eve. 1968 is a year I was thinking about a lot making the record, and again, like I think now 2020 has ended up trumping, no pun intended, 1968 as far as being the most chaotic year in American history. But at the time, I was hyper focused on 1968 and saying, wow, this is the craziest time that since 1968 to be living through as an American. And on Christmas Eve, on Apollo 8, the astronauts read this passage from Genesis, from the Bible, and they end the broadcast with good night to all the good people on the good earth, this calming influence. And like Dr. King has been assassinated, Bobby Kennedy's been assassinated, all these terrible things have happened. And these three people have this perspective from out there of like, hey, our problems and differences on earth are really not that big a deal, because when I look out the other window is infinity. So having that vantage point and saying, the Voyager space probe is like however far away, right? It's left the solar system at that point. So to bring those sounds back to Earth, and there's samples on our record throughout from Voyager's golden record, to bring that perspective and say, in light of all the polarization and all of our differences and people screaming at each other on the internet and just feeling like they're drowning in anger, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of the universe, we have to have some level of understanding and compassion for one another.
Yeah, I just thought the creativity of using that was amazing. I mean, I don't know if other musicians have done it, but I mean, great job. Just amazing.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you. So let's get more current. I guess May 9th is the big date that Every Window is a Mirror coming. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the title track. And tell me, is there a grand concept behind that? And if there isn't, don't feel pressured.
There's not. The part of the idea was of basically releasing Possession when we did, and the cycle being over at the Newark airport when the guy asked me if I'd been to Wuhan.
You should have told him you had that in your luggage.
Yeah. It was incredibly frustrating. I basically tried to not just start on the next Joywave record immediately. So I did a side project with a friend of mine called Best Friends, and we did it long distance, which I think has been one of the good things to come from this. Is some of the I live in Rochester, New York, so I over the years have collaborated with other artists and done production for them or writing for them, and enjoy that process. But historically, I have to carve time out of our touring schedule to come to LA to do that, or go to New York to do that. And now that's happening on Zoom. So that's been an exciting development for me as a creative Rochesterian. But we did this project online where we were just sending files back and forth, and we got very much into just like, what is it like to live right now? And it also ended up being an independent project, so we could move really, really quickly, which was exciting. So it's very much like, here's right now, I'm stuck in my house, everything outside is crazy. I got that out of my system in like April. And at that point, I started saying, okay, well, I'm going to be home for a very long time. I'm looking at the science of the curve, and I'm like, okay, yes. I need to go downstairs so I don't lose my mind. So I started writing and working on the next record. And I wanted to free myself from the giant concept of the golden record and of that zoomed out perspective, because one of the other maddening things was to like be proven right immediately about like where the polarization leads and everything. So I had to just kind of say, okay, I need to set aside all of these grand concepts and get back to just the root of self-expression and also reflecting. Like, this is the first time since anyone cared about our band or what I make that nobody asked me to go make a record. Nobody asked me to write a song. Nobody asked me for anything. Nobody even called me. I was just left alone. So I went downstairs and they say the thing about you have your whole life to make your first record, and then like 6 months from there on out for all the subsequent ones. That ended up not being true this time. And I had all this time, and also like the pipeline was depleted. I mean, we spent so long making Possession, and the songs had been written for so much time ahead, and the rollout was so slow. It was like we just pushed those out into the universe, and now, okay, what do I want to do? So I was able to go do that. And so the next record from us is going to be called Cleanse, and it really is a reflection on being home. And also, I think everyone was faced with their mortality a little bit this past year too. Just like, what are the things that I want to say if this is the last time that I can speak to the audience? What have I learned? I am completely aware that I am so lucky to live the life that I get to live. I get to travel with my friends. I get paid to do it. I get to make the records myself. Like, we have like 100% creative control. Like, that's amazing. So I wanted to share the things that I have learned over like the past 7 years, because I obviously have emerged a very different person. Like, there was so much that I was still carrying on my shoulders that I didn't realize when I stopped to think about it, where like basically nobody cared about anything I did until I was in my late 20s. And I'm glad that it turned out that way now, because sometimes people are successful at 17 or 18 and they can't handle it. They go through a period of being a terrible person, and sometimes they emerge from it remorseful, and sometimes they don't. And I spent that time hating those people because they were all successful and I wasn't. And now we've gone on tour with like all these artists, and like some of them were successful at really young ages, and I show up and I'm like, these people never worked for anything. They don't know what it's like to struggle or to be from a mid-sized city where nobody's listening, and then you connect with them and you're like, oh, actually this person is really great. And letting go of the cynicism and just being thankful for what you have. And it ended up making somehow the most positive Joywave record ever in a time of complete crisis.
Wow. Thank you.
I'm done talking now. Sorry.
No, thank you. All right. To the end. No, that was amazing. I mean, what a concept. I mean, it's like a clean slate, back to basics. And I mean, I think from, I don't know everything about the songs, but what I understand, the song After Coffee is like a celebration of the little moments, very like a kernel.
Exactly. And that song was coming together earlier than COVID. I'm sure some people are going to hear it and say that it's a quarantine song, but it's really just celebrating the normal things in life. Sitting on the couch, my girlfriend is playing Nintendo Switch, I'm petting the cat, we're just talking about things casually.
Right.
Not brushing your teeth with a bottle of water on a bus, like it's
Right.
cool.
Wow. And also, so Every Window is a Mirror is the EP in June, and then Cleanse will be the full length after that.
Yes. Yeah, which there's no date for.
Okay.
I would imagine it would be early next year, but I think that it's probably going to depend on things like being able to go back on the road.
Wow. Are you going to be able to step out of your house, or are you just happy in your new cocoon?
Right now, I'm still happy. It's been, like I said, it's been great collaborating with other artists and stuff on Zoom, and knowing that they're in the same exact situation as me. I'm sure there's some people who are so used to being in the room with people and they're probably hating this, but I mean, in making our new record, like our drummer did come over for a couple days, and him and I in our living situations are able to quarantine easier than the other guys in the band. So we did do that for a couple days, but our guitar player was sending things. We were on Zoom just like we are right now, going over things, and he would send me the files and I would run them through the amps here. And it was a challenge, but I think that I'm kind of a firm believer in the, like, when all things are possible, nothing is possible. As far as creative limitations,
Right.
it's fun, you know. I mean, it's the complete opposite of how we made Possession, but great, you know.
Yeah, like you say, 2020 was a year for the record books, so everything that comes after is going to be, you know, new and unexplored. Well, let's wrap up, but before we do, I was curious what I read about Every Window is a Mirror. It seemed to have a really interesting concept, the lyrics to that song in particular. Is it possible to kind of briefly tell the story of those?
Yeah, in in living through the past year, it became very clear to me that people are not able to understand other people's lives, and even when they think they are not. They are still bound by the neighborhood that they live in, or like what Twitter timeline they're looking at. Right, you're still choosing like the window that you are looking out, that you think you are perceiving the world correctly through, and you're still boxed in. So I think it's really important to be understanding and sympathetic of people whose lives are different than your own. And if we're able to do that, will we be able to? I don't know, but I think there's a key to, we'll say, lowering the temperature.
Wow, you're very circumspect. Is that the right word? And I don't know if you even know the answer to this yet, but will the songs on Every Window is a Mirror also be on the album, or you don't know
Yes.
yet?
So
Yeah, okay.
so it was created as a record, and then similar to last time where we're rolling things out early. It's just going to be the first 4 songs that people are able to digest.
Perfect. All right. Well, wow. I think we could probably go on forever in our little bubbles, but I'm going to look out the window from my lens and presume everyone is just like me, right? So thanks, Dan. This has been really, really great, and I can hardly wait to see you on the road this year, do you think, or do you know, next year?
Well, we just canceled this year, so we'll be home a while longer, but it makes sense. None of us are in like a priority group for vaccines,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people out there who are, you know, manning the counters at the grocery store, and who need it a lot more than we do. So hopefully early next year we're back at it, though.
Perfect. But we have new Joywave music, so we are happy. So thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks.